On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1988. We're going to be taking a look at Bachman Turner Overdrive, and they're going to be performing You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So let's get Randy and the gang up on screen and see how they get on.
She looked at me in the big brown eyes and said, you ain't seen nothing yet. Well, baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. There's something that you're never gonna forget, baby. Well, baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't been around. What she told me. Yet. Well, baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet. There's something that you're never gonna forget, baby. You just ain't seen nothing yet. Rock it over.
I'm going to jump in here. As always, the link to this video is going to be in the description below, so you guys can watch it the whole way through without me interrupting it. But what a classic track this is, and it's one of those songs that is so simplistic, but it is so effective because of the contrast between the rhythm that we get in the intro and the verses compared to just the single strikes on each chord that we get in the chorus. And we will get the guitar out in a second, just to have a quick go through this, because it is one of those songs that has that melodic lead line in the intro, so you've got that focal point, and it is just major scale notes here, just being slightly rearranged and a little bit of stylization added to it as well, but it does the job so well to keep it so melodic. This was the only Bachman Turner Overdrive track to get all the way to the #1 spot, and it's interesting how it all came about because it was originally just an instrumental and something that Randy had thrown together and something that the guys would use when they went into the studio as a work track. So it was just used in order to get the levels correct from the amps to the microphone, and it didn't have any vocals, but then Randy did record some vocals as a joke for his brother, and his brother Gary did have a stutter, so it's why Randy stuttered with the lyrics in the chorus section as we know it as now. And when they were recording the album Not Fragile, the producer at the record label said that the tracks were good, but we need one more track for the album just to lift it a little bit. And they said, well, we haven't got any tracks. The only one that we've got is the work track that we use in the studio. And of course, Randy said, oh, we can't use that because I'm just messing around over the top. It's not a real vocal. It was just a joke. But it was agreed that Randy could re-record the vocal. And interestingly, he did sing it straight. Because he saw the stuttering as a bit of a joke, he then tried to sing it normally without the stuttering, but then they all realized that it sounds better with the stuttering. And I know that back in the day, a lot of people compared it with The Who and My Generation, but it was originally just a joke for his brother Gary, so it wasn't written in that way, trying to rip off The Who at all. So we'll just have a quick look at the intro rhythm, the verse, the pre-chorus, the chorus as well, and also the lead that's happening in the intro and throughout the song, just showing you guys what it's based on and how to come up with something similar yourselves. So we're starting on our A, and we've got this which is an A to a G to a D and then back to the A. And as you can see there, I was borrowing with my first finger, so I'm not hitting the high E string. I'm just hitting effectively my root notes, fifth and octave. So you're getting a power chord sound. Kind of like that. And also the strumming. This is a really important thing to point out because the impact of the chorus is already set up because of the amount of strumming that we've got going on from the beginning of the song. So as soon as you do away with all of this strumming, it's going to be more dramatic. And that's exactly what we have in the chorus. It is the opposite of... You can hear all of those strums going on, but when you get to the chorus... It's just one strum on each chord and it's muted so it doesn't even ring out. So you get such a contrast between each section of the song. So now you guys can actually see the fretboard, the chords I was playing there. Like that. And another thing just to mention about this right hand, we do have a mute here going... So after the A... and the G, and that's just after the upstroke, so it goes down, up, mute, down, up, mute, like that. Kind of like that, and it's that down, up, down is what you want to do after your mute. And you'll notice how we move over to the D a little bit earlier because we've gone G, D, in order to then get all the way around back to our A to then go through that cycle again. Just quickly as well, it looks like Randy's playing the bar chord version of the A chord on that 5th fret. So it means that if you're just playing this yourself and you haven't got another guitarist playing the other A down at the bottom of the guitar, you can fret the high E string and B string with your little finger, the A and the E, in order to get the best of both worlds. So if we're going... like that. So that borrowing, it might be a bit of a stretch, but if you want to get a similar sound to this live sound with the two guitars, then that's how best to go about it. So just jumping into the lead guitar in the intro, we have Blair Thornton playing lead guitar here, I do believe, and just playing through it, we've got this. Just roughly, that's the framework of that intro. And the important thing to point out here is the fact that we've just got... We're just playing through our major scale. That's all it is. And it's not really complicated. It's something that you might get thrown off the scent because, by the way, let me just take you through that. Because learning the major scale on guitar is so easy because it's going to be the same shape. And this is the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale. So you can use this to figure out all of your chords in the future. But starting with your second finger, that is the most important thing. You want that on your root note, and then you have one finger per fret and you don't move, because then you just have second finger, little finger, first finger on the next string down, second finger, little finger, next string down, first finger again, third finger, little finger. And that will give you, and it doesn't matter where we put that, those are all major scales of different keys. As long as you know where your second finger is and what that note is called, we're starting on the A, 2 up is B, the next one up, C, and so on and so forth. So you can just use that same shape, move it up and down the guitar, and now you know all of the major scales of all of the keys. It's exactly the same principle if you then want to extend it to that second octave. So it's just going to be a case of remembering which fingers you're putting down and repeating that cycle. There on the G string, we go first finger, third finger, little finger, second finger, I've now moved down a string, little finger, and then first finger, second finger. And if you keep it strict with just having one finger per fret, then it's just remembering that cycle. And you can work your way all the way down and all the way up and just get used to that. So we've got a little hammer on and pull off there on the B string on that 7th fret, sliding down to the first finger. But I'm going to keep this all in the major scale position that I've just played through. So going, and then, and there's the stylization. So it is still all the major scale notes, but it's going to sound a little bit boring if we went, it's just going to be a bit staccato, a bit jumpy, and not as interesting as going, having a little slide in there. So that's all that's happening, is that we're having a stylized slide to the next note in the shape, in the scale. Obviously, we're not playing the notes in order like you would do with a scale going top to bottom. We're missing out a note here or there, which makes it less predictable for the brain. And if it's less predictable, the brain's going to find it more interesting, especially if you resolve on the root note of your chord at the end of the line. So we've got this. And we've ended on our A, which is the chord that we should be ending on, and the root note we should be ending on for the rest of the song. Also, just to mention, who noticed that stylized slide to the D on the A string? So we've got this. And it's exactly the same principle, that just going straight to that note isn't as interesting as sliding to it. And the same principle from the D to the E. When we get into the verse, it's the same as the intro. Or, depending on how you want to play that A chord, when we get into the pre-chorus, we're now on our D. And there it was a D, and then we slide up to what would be an F, but we keep the D string open. Rather than having, we have. So you can hear how we're keeping the D open, therefore having effectively an F over a D and a G over a D. Like that. I am a big fan of this pre-chorus because it gets a little bit funky in there. When we work our way out of the verse, we've got pre-chorus, And then the chorus comes in there. All of that extra strumming that's going on and this minor seventh sound. You've got some really cool aspects coming in. So from our D that we've moved up, 5th fret, 7th fret, we're then moving into this A shape. It's an A power chord effectively. We've got our root note is going to be on the D string, and that's going to be the 7th fret with your first finger. And then the 3rd finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the G, and the little finger's on the 10th fret of the B string, playing that octave of the root note. So strumming wise, on that right hand, we've just got a down and an up, and then a bit of a mute in there as well. Also, you can be muting and throwing in some strumming at the same time, like that, so that when we move over to our next shape, which is going to be first finger barring across your D, G, and B string, supplying the 3rd finger on the 11th fret of the A string. So it is an E chord, but is that E over an A flat because our 3rd finger's playing not the A, but the A flat, like that. So far we've got, and then we move into, actually, that's going to be hammered on, this F sharp, and it's an F sharp minor 7th shape we've got, like that, and we're going, strumming all of the open strings, not open strings, but barred strings, hammering on, like that. So calling them open, hopefully you get the idea that I haven't got my chord on yet, I'm then placing it on afterwards. And then upstroke mute. And then we're just pedaling from the first finger bar to the chord. Just like that. And then we get into our B minor 7th, which is a really easy chord to play, especially if you can get your thumb over the top of the guitar, because you just squash down that first string and then bar the top 4 strings and leave that A muted in there. And you get that sound. And Randy also puts in his little finger 10th fret of the B string. To get that sound in there before then going down to the chorus, which is just going to be the A, the E, and the D. And I was playing a power chord E there. I wasn't playing that full shape because I'm just playing the 5th and the octave, which is 2nd fret of your A string and D string. Like that. If you go too far, it's going to sound weird, so you just want to hit those 2 strings, maybe 3 if you want a slightly fuller sound, but don't hit 4. So we're going. Also, it might sound like when you're listening to the record, we've got this. And it goes from a higher chord down to the D, and that'll be a higher E down to the D, just the 2nd voicing of it on the 2nd fret. And then the 4th fret, and then the 5th fret with the little finger. But that, I think on the record, they might have done that on the guitar and had it slightly higher in the mix. And on the live version here, we've got like that. They're definitely going down to that power chord E at the bottom and then up to the D. And the other thing that is always going to take precedence when you're listening to it is the bass, because the bass is doing effectively that. So that's why it will sound like. Also, if you want to get more accurate with this when comparing it to the record and not this live performance, they do jump up to the 12th fret with the first finger for the B minor 7th shape, and it's after this. Like that, and it's just all of those strums in there. Like that, and one of the guitars stays down there, so you get a really full sound, but that is something that will pop out on the record that we don't hear popping out in this live performance. But let's get back to the performance.
There's some loving that you're never gonna forget, baby. Mama, baby, you just ain't seen it in nothing yet. nothing yet.
And there we have it. And there was more application there of that major scale in the solo. Pretty much just all major scale notes. There wasn't anything else being thrown in there. So it's something that you can start to use yourself, putting that major scale in a different order, using that as a lead break. I did want to briefly try and get into the history of Bachman Turner Overdrive. This video's probably gone on for quite a while. It always tends to happen when I get the guitar out. But Randy Bachman, by the way, I don't think I've said his surname yet, but you get the idea with the name of the band. But Randy left the Guess Who when they were right at the height of their success. And after that, he said that nobody really wanted to work with him, but he did get together with Chad Allen, who left the Guess Who 4 years earlier. And they started up Brave Belt, which was pretty much the first version of the band that turned into Bachman Turner Overdrive. Randy also got his brother involved, Robbie Bachman, on drums, and at this point as well, Fred Turner joined in for the live touring element because the band were signed to Reprise Records at that point, and this is Brave Belt as they were known then, and Neil Young suggested Fred for the live band setup, and Fred could also supply vocals, which was a massive bonus. So they recorded Brave Belt 2, and during the recording just after that second album is when Chad Allen left the band. Unfortunately, the albums didn't sell massively well, and they were dropped by the record label after Brave Belt 2. So Randy then emptied his bank account in order to record a new album that he could send out as a demo to record companies, which he did. And unfortunately, every record company said no. And it just so happened that at Mercury Records, a guy called Charlie Fack had just returned from France. He was an A&R guy, and he had a pile of demos on his desk. And he didn't want to deal with them. He couldn't be bothered, so he just went to strike them all into the bin. And when he swiped them all into the bin, one of them missed the bin. And it was Randy's demo. So then it just so happened that Charlie remembered Randy's name and had said about a year before, if you do record anything, send a demo to me. So he then got a call from Charlie, and Charlie said, I really like the sound of this demo. Is the whole album like this? And Randy said, yeah, it's all straight up rock. And that's exactly what they were looking for at Mercury at that time, because they'd just lost Uriah Heep and Rod Stewart. So it was just one of those freak things that happened in order for Randy's demo to be seen, and also for it to be the right kind of music that the label were looking for. Something to point out that moving forward with Mercury Records, the album was still going to be Brave Belt 3, but Randy and the guys thought of a new band name, and they were experimenting with using their surnames as the band name, and then they saw a magazine at a steakhouse, and that was called Overdrive, and it was about trucks. But they thought that perfectly describes our sound, so they just put Overdrive after Bachman and Turner. Another thing to mention about the Bachman Turner Overdrive album when it was released, they didn't release any singles from it, so they literally followed the airplay. Wherever there was a radio station that was playing the album, they would go there and play as many shows as they could to keep the interest up and for people to check them out live. And then when it was played somewhere else, they would go wherever that was. An opportunity did pop up in Missouri when they had an event planned and they had a headline band who were well known, but they cancelled. So they were looking for another band to fill that headline slot, and Bachman Turner Overdrive were chosen. So because of this event, the local radio station started playing the Bachman Turner Overdrive album, and they started playing it quite a lot in the local and surrounding areas, to the point where the record label contacted Bachman Turner Overdrive and said, what's going on? We've just had 10,000 orders for the album in 1 week. And it turned out that this live event that they were going to be playing was an outdoor drive-in theatre, and 15 to 20,000 people turned up to see Bachman Turner Overdrive, and that album was certified gold in 1974. I don't want this video to go on for too long, but in 1973 is when they released Bachman Turner Overdrive 2, and that was a monster hit. It got to number 4 in the US album charts and number 6 in the Canadian charts. Let It Ride got to number 23 in the singles chart, and Taking Care of Business was also a massive hit, and it really got the ball rolling for the band. As I said, this song comes from the 1974 album Not Fragile, and that was also a bit of a play on Yes's album, which was called Fragile. Obviously, there's a little bit more to the story with the change in personnel over the years, and the Bachman Turner Overdrive trademark as a band name, so then it was changed to BTO to not infringe on that trademark. But it's great to have a look back at these guys in 1988 with their highest charting hit. And thank you guys so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!